Good morning, everybody. It's that time of year again. Hardcore Season 8 is upon us, and so I'm going to be giving you some builds to get through it. So if you're interested, we have Hardcore Season 8 build guides. On the docket for today, we have a Tiefling Acolyte of the Skin, a Human Blightcaster, a Dark Apostate, a Drow Dark Hunter, a Drow Sacred Fist, and a Tiefling Stormsinger. Important to note, all of the builds this season I'm putting out are fully free to play. So if you're a brand new player and you want to try out Hardcore League and you want something that's going to work, all these builds are free. You can find them, as I said, there'll be a link below to this thread that will have all of the builds, so you can go ahead and just start scanning through each one and kind of getting your bearing. But if you need an explanation, that's what this video is for. It will be thoroughly timestamped, so you can go through and click below. There'll be like on the little bar there, you'll be able to scan around and just click to the exact build that you want, so you don't have to watch the whole thing. Or if you don't know what to play, maybe watch the whole thing and figure that out. Now, if you're somebody who also, you've got a little bit more money in your pocket, maybe you already have unlocked a lot of the classes on your account already, and you don't want to play a free-to-play build, well, I have my Season 7 build guides from last season. These ones are absolutely not free to play at all, but it's just in a nice Google Doc here, so it's well organized, so you can kind of click around and be like, oh, I want to play Shifter Caster Druid, well then play Shifter Caster Druid. I want to play a Favorite Soul Inquisitive, I can play a Favorite Soul Inquisitive. Do you want to do a tank for endgame, for like Reapers? Here's a tank for Reapers. So again, all that stuff is there. So as I said, these are going to be all free to play. If you're interested, make sure to check out, and links for everything will be in the description for what you need. So without further ado, let's get started with the first of the list, the Tiefling Acolyte of the Skin. This character is going to start with a 20 Charisma, a 14 Constitution. I wish I could fit in more Constitution, but don't worry, it does end up being pretty tanky overall, thanks to the Acolyte of the Skin being relatively tanky while retaining a lot of blasting power. As far as the feats go during the level up process, it's fairly standard for a caster, where we have Maximize Spell, Empower Spell, and Quicken Spell, these meta magic feats. You might not understand exactly why we take these meta magic feats, but the reason why we take them is because in the tree, while Warlocks don't actually get spells that they cast that deal additional damage, you get Evard's Black Tentacles and Arcane Tempest, and that's about it. Instead, this character is going to be using the Acolyte of the Skin here, which gets Fiendish Glare. And Fiendish Glare can have Maximize, Empower, Quicken, all that stuff applied, as well as the Glare of the Pit, giving you huge burst damage potential, which is very good. On top of that, you also get this ability called Ash. This is basically a spell, it's the spell Scorch. And the reason why we take it here is because with Improved Scorch, you can strip away fire immunity. Acolytes of the Skin are part demon, and they shoot fire all the time. So being able to strip fire immunity from targets is very, very good. And again, the meta magic feats apply to all of these things. So that's why we take the meta magic feats relatively early. You also grab Force of Personality, so it helps out your will saves. Evocation focuses, so you get some additional stats here. And then Medium Armor Proficiency, because you need Medium Armor for your end game build. If you're only going to 20, you're not planning on going into Epics, just take Toughness or something here. You don't have to worry about that, but if you are going to Epics, you do want Medium Armor Proficiency for the end game. And then as we go down, the Epic Eldritch Blast just gives you more damage here. Burst of Glacial Wrath is so you can freeze targets, even though you're a fire character, you want to freeze things. Emboldened Spells, you have higher DCs, so your freeze will work more consistently. Defect Warding for defense, Wellspring of Power for some damage, and then Scion of Celestia to give you some extra health, as well as Toughness for some extra health. Now the enhancements should be fairly straightforward with this character. You've got the Acolyte of the Skin here, with all the extra damage, the Fiendish Glare, the Glare of the Pit, the Transformation. So you got a bunch of damage coming out of this tree. We also grab Tainted Scholar because it gives you access to Death Ward, one of the best spells in the game, preventing you from instant death effects. It's kind of good for hardcore, a place where you don't want to die instantly, as well as giving you the best shape you're going to be using for this character, which is the Eldritch Blast Shape Chain, so your blast will jump from target to target, which is very convenient. You could, in theory, use the Beam. I don't like it, so I'm not recommending it here. And then finally, we have the Soul Eater, just to get Taint the Blood, because it reduces monsters' fortitude saves. And this is important because your fire damage that you deal is based off of monster fortitude saves, so this is quite helpful for that purpose. As far as how you should progress through this tree, basically, you want to go into the Tainted Scholar first and pick up Chain as soon as possible, as well as this Strong Pact. So your first 9 points, Tainted Scholar, grab your Strong Pact for extra damage, grab a couple points in Fainted Health, or even just max this out, then grab Strong Pact 2 and Chain. That'll be your first 9 or 10 points, just because it's so valuable to have Chain and the extra damage right there. Once you have that, you're going to go back into Acolyte of the Skin, start spending points up this tree, and you want to get Fiendish Glare as soon as possible. By the time you get Fiendish Glare, this is another 13 points deep into the tree. So you're probably going to be somewhere around level 6 or so, at which point you want to just fill out some cores, grab the cores here for the extra defense, grab the cores here because you can get Stanch. Stanch is an ability where you press a button and it takes half of your health or it doesn't take away the health, it gives you temporary hit points equal to half of your health, which is just nice. So if you have 100 hit points, press this button, you get 50 temporary. It might have the cost of reducing your maximum hit points by 3%, but that's generally okay because the temporary hit points can help you, especially if you have to run through a trap or some other nonsense. And then basically, once you have that taken care of, the world is your oyster in terms of the direction you want to go. You can either, pick up the extra strong Pact here, the Utter Dark Blast, so you can change your blast damage to evil, so you don't have to worry about scaling force spell power at all. You could go up Tiefling, pick up the extra Ash here and the Fire Immunity Bypass if you think that's going to be more relevant for the leveling process. Or you can go up Acolyte of the Skin. Excuse me, I still have a sore throat, I'm still working through it. And then grab yourself the Devil's Bulwark, as well as Fiendish Symbiosis and the Glitter of the Pit. So all of these options are good, depending on exactly which direction you want to go. The Soul Eater thing for Taint the Blood, this is more of an epic thing. You won't really run into this in Heroics, so this is one of the last things I would take for sure. And then finally, we have the Epic Destinies. The Epic Destinies is if you go into Epics are fairly straightforward. Basically, counterintuitively, you're going to be an Exalted Angel. Exalted Angel is super powerful, this character, because you do almost exclusively light and fire damage. The evil damage you do with your blast uses light spell power, and the fire spell power, or fire spells, use fire spell power. And Exalted Angel is literally light and fire. That is the whole point. So, you get to pick up Cure Moderate Wounds, which is super powerful. You get to pick up Holy Fireball, which is one of the best spells in the entire game, and just a bunch of good defensive stats. And then additionally, we're going to use Draconic Incarnation to be able to pick up both the Dragon Breath here, so you get a huge big blast of damage from Dragon Breath, as well as doubling the damage. This ability scales to the dragon, which not only will make you take less fire damage, but also give you absorption, so you take less damage from hits as well, and a super buff to your Wellspring of Power to give you increased damage for a longer time. It's important to note that this is a very tight build, not a lot of points left over, so I will put only like 1 point here into Unyielding Sentinel. Another thing that's kind of relevant for this build is that during the leveling process, so going from 20 to 30, I would recommend just taking Renewal just during the leveling process, because this is super valuable. It's just a nice heal that'll make it so you pretty much never die while leveling, because you can always just cast this heal on yourself. So the way I would probably level this is I would go into Exalted Angel and grab the Mantle right away. So that's 3 points right here. I would go on Yielding Sentinel and grab Renewal. That's 6 points. So you got to spend something in here. Probably take Divine Energy Resistance, maybe some Fortification, and then Renewal for 6 points. And then grab the Dragon Breath. And once you have all of that, then you're going to be moving up Exalted Angel to grab Mass Cure Moderate Wounds, as well as the Holy Presence for the passive healing, which is super powerful. Once you have that, then you're going to pretty much just fill out Draconic Incarnation, which is really nice. And then once you then start filling out Exalted Angel after that, taking some of the higher tier stuff. And then once you're level 32, respec and spend your points like so. And then last but not least, this is the level 32 stuff. This is your gear. Basically, the only thing I want to point out here, because the gear is pretty straightforward, we're running Flame Cleanse Fury set with a little bit of Winter, a little bit of Autumn, getting some of that extra damage. But again, this is where the medium armor comes in. You really need the Flame Cleanse Fury because it's kind of the best set here. It's like super duper duper omega good. It does every single stat that you want, and it's also like really tanky and defensive and powerful. So your character is like, you know, you're going to be a warlock, but you're going to have like 1400 hit points. And this is not including ship buffs, which will give you almost like an extra 100 hit points at this point. This is not including like any Reaper points. So character is going to feel much more defensive than the average character, especially at this level. So what you're going to need to do to make this work is you will need medium armor proficiency. If you want to go into epics, I would recommend it. Additionally, you're going to need to get a Sapphire of Spell Agility. The best way to get one of these is from the DDO store. You can buy them. If you're leveling up to 32, you'll have like about 800 to 1,000 points earned. So the extra, I think it's like 195 points for this augment will totally be worth it. And then lastly, you will need 1 filigree of spell failure reduction. It doesn't matter where it comes from. You can get it from any filigree or any of the filigree sets that has it. There's like a whole bunch. You can check out the forum or the wiki for it. And so ask your fellow player once you get to cap and say, hey, does anyone have 1 spell failure filigree? And then just jam it into one of your items. So that's pretty much it for the item build here. Fairly straightforward, and hopefully you should be seeing some good results here. Oh, and last thing I wanted to touch on is spells. So you want to go and grab some of these Acolyte spells. This is pretty much all the ones I would recommend. Jump, and then Night Shield or Shield, depending on which one you have. If you're lower level, I like Night Shield, but shield is also perfectly fine. It doesn't really matter. It's just to protect yourself from magic missiles. Blur and invisibility for those weird situations where maybe you want to be invisible. Dimension Door is one of the best spells in the game, so you're definitely going to want this. Displacement is just so you keep yourself protected from physical attacks. Evard's Black Tentacles is the best crowd control spell in DDO. It has no save, so you're going to be casting this constantly. This is where you're going to be spending almost all of your spell points in combat. Finger of Death and Wail of the Banshee in case they come up. Your DC is going to be a little bit low. This doesn't really super focus on Necromancy, but you know, it still might kill something here and there. And then Protection from Elements and Arcane Tempest to give you some extra defense and some extra damage. So overall, Acolyte skin is going to be super strong as a starter because they just get so much damage right away out of the gate. Your first 6 levels, you'll probably be one of the best and strongest characters to play out there, and hopefully it will carry you all the way up to level 32. Next up is Blightcaster Druid. Now, we decided to pick a human this time just because there aren't really any good wisdom-free races, and so human just kind of gets the job done, and the extra feats will come in handy with this character. We're using Wisdom as the main focus because that's how you cast spells, and then Constitution as your secondary stat, taking Wisdom all along the way. As far as the level up process goes, this character gets a lot of really powerful spell-like abilities very early, so you're grabbing Quicken, Maximize, and Empower to throw into your spell-like abilities. As a reminder, you're not throwing these onto every spell that you cast, just the ones you get from your tree, because if you put them onto every spell you cast, you're going to run out of spell points really, really quickly. As far as the Imbue go, or the Wild Shape, you're also taking Thornkin, because you're going to be casting pretty much exclusively Thorn spells during the level up process. The Thorn spells are crazy powerful, and they have no saving throw, so yeah, it's going to be really, really good, and you'll see it pretty quick. This character also grabs the Shield Mastery feats, 1, because they grant more hit points, and 2, it's really easy to run a very powerful shield during the leveling process, so just keep that in mind. You also want to grab Conjuration Focus, because that's the damage type of pretty much all of your most dangerous spells. And then as we move into Epics, you get Hive Master for free, because it's just part of Druid, but once you get to Epics, you will want to do a bit of a respec of your character, and change up from the poison stuff, or sorry, not poison, the thorn stuff, into the acid stuff, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. You don't have to change too much, but I'll kind of go over exactly what you need to change. In Epics, though, this is the feat progression. Wellspring of Power for additional damage. It's just a cooldown you press for huge damage. Perfect Shield Mastery for more health and defense. Intensify for more damage. Epic Spell Power Acid, because Acid is your primary damage in Epics. Ruin and Greater Ruin for huge damage. Deific Warning for some defense. And Sign of the Planar Earth for some defense and some damage. Now, enhancements. So this is where I said you're going to have to do a little bit of a respec, but when I mean little bit, I mean like little bit. This character doesn't need to spend any points in the Nature's Warrior tree. They don't help it. Instead, you're spending points in Blightcaster and Season's Herald. So, what kind of respec do you need to do? Basically, the only change you'll need to make with this character is just making it so that in Heroics, there's this effect Vile Thorns here. You want to run Poisoned Thorns during the Heroic experience because it adds poison damage on your spells, and then you add Vile Thorns in Epics. If anything, you could honestly just run Vile Thorns the whole time and not even notice, not have to do any respec. So maybe I was overselling the respec a little bit, but either way, it's fairly straightforward. Blightcaster is super, super omega strong for 2 reasons. 1, Thorn Strike and Splinter Bolt are fantastic spell-like abilities, both dealing really high single target damage during the leveling process and should pretty much one-shot any target with your Quicken, Maximize, and Empower on. You're just going to be going back and forth, going like click, 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 pointing at people, almost like you're a gunslinger in the Old West knocking targets down. However, there are a couple places where your character starts to grow tremendously in power. First is you can pick up every rose has a thorn, so Spike Growth deals double damage, as well as Defile Growth, which adds negative damage onto your Spiked Growth. When you get to level 5, the spell Spike Growth will clear entire rooms on its own, and it will continue to clear entire rooms on its own all the way up until about level 15-16. So Spike Growth is a absolute monster of a spell, and it is incredibly powerful, so you're going to want to make sure to grab this and this and this stuff right away, at least before level 5, because that's when you get this power. And then the next part is Death Eater. What this does is gives you temporary hit points equal to your Wisdom score, which happens to be your custom stat whenever you get a kill, and they stack up to 3 times. Now, I think the builder doesn't have the data. You get additional stacks. It's only 3 stacks, and then it goes up to 4 and 5 here. What this means is if your Wisdom is an 18, as a Druid, and you're level 6, you get an extra 1 point from like a level up at level 4, so that's 19. Maybe you're drinking a potion that gives you some Wisdom, so you're at like 23 Wisdom. So with 23 Wisdom, every time you get a hit kill, you get 23 temporary hit points. You get 23-point shield. If you get a second kill, now you get 46 hit points. And if you get a third kill, now you get 69 hit points. And not only do you get 69 hit points, let's say that temporary shield goes down to 10. if you get a kill, you bounce back up to 69. You get the whole value back, which is pretty nice. So that's why this character is going to be largely invincible during the leveling process. Once you have Every Rose Has a Thorn, Defiled Growth, these two abilities, and Death Eater, spend your points wherever you want. Usually after that, I would go into Season's Herald and start picking up, going up to Season's Herald Wellspring for the maximum cash level, just to increase the damage of my spells. Kind of going through here. In Heroics, you're going to be leveling with Child of Summer. In Epics, you're going to want to use Child of Winter instead. You're also going to want to grab Wax and Wane here for some extra crit. And then after that, the world's your oyster. Really, just take whatever you think sounds cool in either tree. Moving up is great. You don't care too much about everything decays, because removing acid and poison immunity doesn't really matter too much, because your character, you don't really do any acid damage in Heroics. It's only until Epics, so you don't have to take this right away if you don't want to. Doomsayer is just nice for the DCs. Fast-acting poison. I actually just found this was useful. Poison does a surprising amount of damage with this. On top of that, it also strips poison immunity, so if you want to do that, you can. But again, you don't have to. And then Human just gives you some wisdom and some healing amp, which just feels pretty convenient. So very straightforward. Like I said, you're just going to rush Blightcaster, grab this, grab this, grab this, and grab this. You can take the crit stuff later. Just grab this other stuff that's a little bit more consistent, and then make sure you have Death Eater. And the second you get Death Eater, the world is your oyster. Just spend points wherever you want. Grab the crit. Go in here, grab the extra cash levels, grab more crit. Who cares? You're going to blow everything up anyway, so don't worry about it. As we move into Epics, your character is going to be running as a Draconic Incarnation with some Primal Avatar on Yielding Sentinel. One of the downsides of Blightcaster is you don't really get a lot of amazing healing in this build. It's like you still get Regenerate, but you don't actually get like the heal spell, so your burst healing kind of sucks. And that's where Renewal comes in, being a very powerful heal. With this and Regenerate, you shouldn't really ever die or have any issues with dying or even coming close. Additionally, Primal Avatar is so you can get Thorn, which gives added damage to all of your spells. You cast all of these types of spells, so this is just a huge amount of additional damage. And then granting access to Shardstorm, which with its ability at its core will give you Shard Reflection, granting you a percentage of your hit points as a shield, which is very convenient. And then finally, Draconic Incarnation here with the Black Dragon Breath, Scales the Dragon, Gaping Maw, pretty much everything's good here. And then Ruin Intensified, allowing you to deal double damage with your Ruin and Greater Ruin. And it's important to note, Blightcaster is one of the best peoples to use Ruin for, because this character, as a Blightcaster, gets Force Critical. Most characters don't get any type of Force Critical. However, as a Druid, we'll kind of go over this, you get physical spells, which actually I don't know if that will count for Ruin. I think it should. But either way, Wax and Wane will count for that, because it counts the spells as well. So again, you're going to have a lot of this like physical crit, so it'll help out there, and you'll have a super strong Ruin. Regardless, this character has a lot of spells that have basically no saving throw, so even though your spell DCs won't be as high as some other characters, it doesn't matter. You're just going to blow everything up anyway, making it super, super strong for the end game. And then finally, equipment-wise, this is going to be the hardest part about this character. It took me a while to come up with an equipment set. This is the one I was most happy with in terms of just ease of access. Raiding gives so many good items to Blightcasters, but you're not raiding on hardcore. That's just not happening. So the solution here instead is Fey Twisted items. We got 3 Fey Twisted items here from Autumn, because the Autumn set is kind of bad, but if you use Fey Twisted items, it's actually not that bad anymore. The Gloryborn Gloves are amazing, the Celestial Signia is amazing, and the Declining of Dead Leaves is amazing. So all of these items together make some amazing gear, and then it kind of fills out the rest of the set, making something that is pretty defensive and very strong. But as I said, it does require a little bit of Fey Twisted farming. If you don't know much about Fey Twisted farming or Fey Twisted gear, don't worry, you'll figure it out when you get there, because other people will be able to help you very, very easily once you arrive at that place. Also, I don't know why I keep doing spells last, I just keep forgetting about them, but general rule of thumb here is you're going to take every Thorn spell as you go up, so Thorn Strike, and Splinter Bolt, and Thorn Bloom, and Thorn Wave, and Grasping Thorns. If it says Thorn in it, just take it and cast those spells. They're super good the entire time. Additionally, feel free to grab some other acid spells if you want. Melf's Acid Arrow? Why not? Acid Blast? Why not? And there's Acid Rain? Who cares? They'll just add some extra damage if you have extra spell points to spend on these spells. Make sure to grab some heals along the way, with Lesser Vigor, Vigor, Greater Vigor, and Regenerate all being pretty valuable on this character, because it's pretty much your only way to heal, so that's going to be a little bit relevant. You also get the AoE Poison as well, which can be quite nice. And then Spike Growth. As I said, this is the bread and butter. This should be the first spell you take once you get to level 5. Spike Growth is amazing, and it just never stops being good. As we move up all the way into the high-level spells, your big hitters, Acid Well is going to just kill everything. Tsunami is one of the best spells in the entire game. It's just broken. It's going to kill everything. Honestly, once you get up to level 9 spells, you're just laughing all the way to the bank. Everything dies. Blightcaster is unreasonably effective on Hardcore League, especially in low difficulties. So if you're playing on like Elite difficulty or Reaper 1, yeah, you'll be having a great time. And since endgame on Hardcore League is Reaper 4, again, you're going to be having a very, very good time. Next up on the list is the Dark Apostate, the human Dark Apostate, no less. This character uses Wisdom as its main stat. Its Wisdom isn't a 18, simply because it's just, you need a lot of stats on Cleric. You're wearing heavy armor the whole time, so you need a little bit of strength, especially on Hardcore, or else you're going to be overburdened. And if you're over-encumbered, your character is going to be moving slower, which is a huge risk in combat, so you got to be careful about that. Additionally, you also need some Charisma for the ability to turn, and until we get ship buffs on Hardcore League, if you start day 1 as Dark Apostate, it's going to be not the best point spread. It is what it is. However, for this character, counterintuitively, you're using the Sun Domain. The main reason is that a lot of the Dark Apostate abilities are actually evil damage, which scales off of light spell power, and you get the most of it from the Sun Domain. Additionally, most of the Sun Domain abilities don't really have saves, and neither do a lot of the Dark Apostate abilities. So you're going to be kind of banking on the fact that you don't have to deal with saving throws for the most part, although you will still want to make Evocation your main focus on this character. Dark Apostates, you would imagine, are dark, spooky necromancers. However, this character is not going to be a dark, spooky necromancer because, you just have to deal with a lot of, like, especially if you're doing every quest. If we're doing 5k favor, if you're trying to get through every single adventure in the game for whatever reward there happens to be, there's a lot of undead. There's a lot of constructs, a lot of things you can't fight. This way, you can kind of ignore that and just play it like a regular Sun Domain cleric, so it should be fairly strong. So as I said with the other ones, maximize Quicken and Empower because you get tons of spell-like abilities, Searing Light, and Sunbeam, and Sunburst, as well as even more beyond that. As we move down, we got Shield Mastery, Improved Shield Mastery, and Greater Shield Mastery, so you can get some extra defense, just like the Druid. And then in Epics, Wellspring of Power, the Light Spell Power scaling, because you will be using Light Spell Power. Burst of Glacial Wrath, so you can freeze some monsters in place. Perfect Shield Mastery for the defense. Embolden and Intensify to increase the DCs of your spells and the damage of your spells. Sign of Celestia for the defense. And then lastly up here, you can decide whether you want to take Epic Spell Power, Fire, or Toughness. It's entirely up to you. If you feel like you want more defense, take Toughness. If you want more damage, take Epic Spell Power, Fire. But that's level 30-something, so you'll figure that out when you get there. You'll know, by the time you've gotten to that point, you'll have a feel for it, and you'll know what you really want once you get there between those two decisions. Now, enhancements. Gonna sound really weird, but you're not really playing that much Dark Apostate. The main reason why you're a Dark Apostate is because Shadow Shrouding and Shadow Form is super duper duper good. It says you take extra damage from light. You actually don't. Instead, this form just gives you extra wisdom and constitution, gives you extra defense, it gives you fortification, and a ton of immunities. Immunity to poison, immunity to disease, and then also healing from negative, so you can't be hit by like Necrotic Bolt or other super dangerous negative spells. The downside is you take half healing from positive. That's actually okay, because you can just cast negative spells on yourself to heal. You just take the harm spell, and then your character's going to have no problem, and you get a ton of defense. Additionally, you also get extra health from the Dark Apostate tree, and you can get Bane and Prayer, as well as Pray for Mercy, to add additional damage that has no save on it, which is pretty convenient. No, the bread and butter for this character is actually the Divine Disciple, because Divine Disciple grants huge amounts of critical chance with all of your light, negative, and alignment spells, which is good, on top of just granting, again, extra damage, mana cost reduction, spell points, and some convenient features, and some fun cores. Additionally, the War Priest tree grants a ton of defense, granting both health, physical resistance rating, even more physical resistance rating, a bunch of fire and light spell power, which is what you're casting because you're like Sun Domains, you have fire and light damage. And then on top of that, 10% increased hit points because it's really good to have on a caster. So the weird thing is, you end up getting like a bunch of light spell power here, light spell power here, and light spell power here. So as a result, your character, without even having a single item equipped, is almost like 150 or closer to 200 spell power just from your enhancement tree. Like, it's really crazy how much damage you get. So the early levels for this character is super duper strong because you just have all the defense of going into the Shadow Shrouding form, so it's really hard for monsters to, they can't critically strike you, you can't be sneak attacked, so it's just really convenient. And you're immune to all those early game poison traps, and you get a bunch of damage from these two places, the Divine Disciple. Now, you are playing as a light Divine Disciple, which goes left to right, but something I want to point out, and this is just a trick for the early leveling process, what you're going to want to do here is, I'm going to unspec this, whatever, it's going to start getting really mad at me about these spells, blah, blah, blah. So, Dark Apostate is kind of weird in that left to right is Emissary of Light, but you can also take the cores right to left and become an Emissary of Dark instead. which gives you negative and universal spell power. For the leveling process, the way that you're going to do it is you're going to be going right and left, like so. You'll be taking these 3 on the right and these 3 on the left. Whoopsie, wrong way. Innervation. So this is what you're going to want to do for the entire leveling process until you get to level 20. And the reason is because the cores give you tons of spell power, negative and universal spell power, light and universal spell power. So as a result, this is 30 universal spell power plus 15 light and 15 negative, so 45 light and 45 negative spell power by level 6. Level 6 items don't even give that much spell power. So you're going to be just super juiced up with tons of extra spell power by spending points in these cores, on top of getting +2 to all saves and +2 to all saves for 4 saving throws and 2 wicked spells. So for the leveling process, this is what you do here, and then once you get all the way up to level 20, you're going to reset this tree, reset this down, and then take the light version and the light version and the light version, because they give you increased damage for all of your light spells at the capstone, as well as like healing amplification and wisdom and all sorts of other stuff. And it makes it worth it to actually take. But before then, you don't really need the Sunburst spell. You get the spell-like ability. You don't need the Sunbeam spell. You get the spell-like ability. It's fine. But when you're in Epics, you will want Sunbeam, you will want Sunburst, etc. How should you spend your points in this tree? A little hard to say. I don't take the Prophetic Zenith Nimbus of Light here, but you should take this for Heroics. So you're going to want to grab Emissary of Light and then probably grab Prophetic Zenith as one of the first things that you take in the whole thing, and just have this spell-like ability so you can throw Maximize and Power and all that other stuff into it. Then afterwards, I would recommend going into Dark Apostate, picking up Shadowy Bulwark, Bane, Prayer, and Pray for Mercy. This will be kind of like your bread and butter. You're going to be running around using Nimbus of Light, Prayer, and Bane as your like early game damage, just to bounce some damage into monsters, into targets. And then once you have that and Shadow Shrouding, then you're going to do the whole lefty-righty with the cores and Divine Disciple. And then after that, World's your oyster. Me personally, I'm generally going to go up the tree this way and start getting some more damage, as well as making sure I take the cores here for the Enhanced Shadow Form, because it's just nice and powerful. Alternatively, you can go War Priest, and instead just go up the War Priest and pick up some extra defenses if you want. Resilience of Battle is super powerful in the early game because it gives you 5 damage reduction, so that is also an option there. And then, as I said, just kind of work your way up through the trees. Human, I generally would leave this for last, but that is also technically an option for you. So that's how I would go through the tree there. As far as the epic destinies are concerned, just like the Acolyte of the Skin, this one's an Exalted Angel, counterintuitively. You're going to be an undead angel. How cool is that? The main reason for this is, again, you have all this light spell power and then all this fire spell power from being a fire domain, or a sun domain cleric. So why not use it for light and fire? Angelic Form for the light and fire damage added on every spell, Holy Fireball for the extra damage here, and then Draconic Breath Fire for this. This character is a little bit tankier, because Dark Apostate, you're kind of, you're playing the long game, you're chipping away at enemies and not going to be instantly killing them. As a result, I did spend more points on Yielding Sentinel to pick up the extra Legendary Shield Mastery for 15 physical resistance rating while holding a shield, which this character can easily do since you're a cleric, extra armor class from your shield, and immunity to knockdown while wearing a shield, which will save you a lot in epics. Oh, that wolf is coming up to trip you? No, it's not. You're actually immune, which is very convenient once you get into the epic setting. Character also ends up being like a little bit tankier as well, having over 200 physical resistance rating with the item set that I have set up. So your character really shouldn't be taking a lot of damage in combat, which is very nice. Now, let's take a look at the spells real quick before I forget. So I actually didn't fill in, or no, I did fill in. These are the missing spells when I untook some of the cores, so ignore that in the builder. But basically, you're going to want to be grabbing some damage spells, so Nimbus of Light, Deific Vengeance, Searing Light, Holy Smite, whatever you can get during the leveling process. Holy Smite, by the way, amazing, bread and butter. You're going to love the spell once you get it. Super huge fan. And then also picking up whatever defensive abilities you can. Reminder that clerics don't get cures for free, right? So you won't get the cures automatically. You get the inflict spells. So that's great for you because you can cast inflict wounds to heal yourself once you turn undead, which you can do as soon as possible because there's no downside. But for the leveling process, make sure you're taking a cure spell at the beginning, right? Make sure you're taking a cure spell maybe instead of spawn screen. Maybe you're taking a cure spell, and then once you get cure serious, now you're swapping a cure moderate for spawn screen. Once you get, cure moderate, maybe you're swapping out cure wounds for another spell, because you can just go to a tavern and swap whenever you feel like it. So that's important. Another reason why Sun Domain is really good for this character, Firestorm is a gigantically damaging spell, and Celestial Bombardment is disgusting. If you've never pressed this button on the keyboard, it feels amazing. You press it, these big fireballs come down and everybody dies. So Great spells, huge fan of that one. Also, as a reminder, Prayer is a damage spell in here. Bless is a damage spell in here in the early levels. So you can take Bless and then just cast Bless on people. While you can use Maximize and Empower and other stuff on your Bless and on your Prayer, which would be very cool, one of the main issues is that, that would make it cost a lot more, so it would be really expensive. But the nice thing is, as I said, if you do the lefty-righty here, where you take the left side, you take the right side, you grab a couple cores here, grab a couple cores here, your character is going to have like 85 spell power without even any items. So even if you can't pick up anything off the ground, you're looting chests, you found not a single spell power item, you still have a lot kicking around. And lastly, let's talk about the equipment. So we have a item set here. You're going to notice that it is missing a helmet. That's because there is like literally no helmet in here that you actually need. So you can do whatever you want. Your last helmet can be fully flexible. So if you want to have like some extra spell points, you can go ahead and grab yourself a Crown of Leaves or Fey Dark Fairy Lights, whichever one. Fey Dark Fairy Lights would honestly be better than Crown of Leaves, but you can pick up, like I said, whichever one you think is most interesting. Pick up that 4-piece Autumn set. Maybe there's a cool defensive item you want to throw in there. Maybe there's some other cool power. There's a whole bunch of flexibility in terms of this gear set, but I actually got every stat that you actually want in here without needing it. The only exception that might seem kind of weird to some of you is the Bulwark of Snow. This is a tower shield. You won't have proficiency with this, but that's okay. You get all of the benefits of using a shield without being proficient anyway, and it has no downside. So this shield is going to be massively defensive. It contributes to one of the reasons why you have 200 physical resistance rating and 152 armor class, making you very tanky. This character also gets the Deep Promise Onyx and Wintercourt necklace, so you have huge negative amplification and healing amplification, so you can be affected by pretty much all healing effects, and you'll be pretty happy. So again, pretty defensive build, and then it's just got a bunch of spell power built in. You've got the Gloryborn gloves. You have Ring of Falls Decay to get your negative stats. You can Dinosaur Bone in some extra stats here. You've got like the Hallow Trail for the light spell power. So you have a lot of things that you need. You're gonna have all your stats. So just as I said, it's fairly easy to gear out with this build. Big noteworthy item, Goggles of Dusk. This is one of the craziest items in the game. And I use it on characters that don't even use Wisdom. It's just the best evocation item, so it is super easy to get. It comes from Army of Eternal Night, a quest that's full of undead that are not immune to fire damage, or light damage, or evil damage. So your character can just go in and start turning undead and ripping them to shreds. So it's a cool experience right there, and it should be very easy to gear out this character. So we've talked pretty much all spellcasters so far, but what about not spellcasters? Well, don't worry, I have a good one for you in the form of Dark Hunter. Dark Hunter is super duper mega strong for Hardcore League. One of the main reasons why it's so good is borderline trap immunity. Your character can just blunder through every trap. You don't need to know where they are or what they do, and they'll just hit you in the face. You'll take a little bit of damage and be like, oh, there's a trap here, I guess, guys. Even if you can't spot it, which you should be able to with this build. But even if you can't, this character can just take the trap, get slammed right in the skull, and that's okay, because then you can disable it afterwards, meaning it's one of the best defensive characters. If you're somebody who dies to traps constantly, you're going to want to play this one. So we are a Drow, we are a Dark Hunter, starting with lots of dex, some intelligence so you can do all the trapping things. Important note, it is very hard to do trapping skills in Hardcore League because, again, no tomes, no guaranteed items, no ship buffs, nothing. So we do start with the higher intelligence than usual, which is where the Drow comes in, getting a good dex and intelligence for cheap. The downside is a little bit lower constitution, but that's okay. Also, your wisdom is not high enough to cast all your spells, so either with ship buffs or like any item, and you should be fine. You'll need a +2 wisdom item by level 11, which should be manageable for every single person playing this game. If you can't manage that, drink a potion of Owl's Wisdom. They're borderline free and you buy them in the market. So, what feats do you take? You're going to be grabbing Dodge, Mobility, and Whirlwind Attack. The reason why you're doing this is because you get all the 2 weapon fighting feats for free as a ranger. So instead, Dodge, Mobility, and Whirlwind Attack is going to be the play here. Whirlwind Attack is insane for leveling. It just feels so good, and you're going to fall in love with this skill. Even though rangers do get an ability called Dance of Death, which allows them to hit all targets in front of them the entire time that they play, you don't get that until level 12, and this character might not even get that until 14 or 15, so Whirlwind Attack is fantastic. However, once you get into Epics, you really don't need Whirlwind Attack anymore, which is why I have the alternate Spring Attack. When you get into Epics, you can swap out Whirlwind Attack for Spring Attack once you feel like you're not using Whirlwind Attack anymore, because Spring Attack is just good, it lets you move around and be a little bit more mobile and dodgy in combat. But, as I said, depending on the circumstance, you may still like Whirlwind Attack, so kind of preferential. So take Whirlwind Attack 100%, but then maybe swap it later if you feel like you're not using it anymore. Improve critical slashing, because you use slashing weapons. Quicken Spell. I personally like Quicken Spell just because I like having the ability to cast like heals quickly and buffs quickly and other effects. But again, your mileage may vary. Precision, so you can hit targets more easily, and then 2-weapon defense to give you more physical resistance rating and magic resistance rating cap. Moving into epics, we're taking the standard melee feats. Overwhelming critical and perfect 2-weapon fighting, because that's just more damage. Nimble Fingers, which gives you Disable Device and Open Lock, and also another ability we're going to talk about later. Double Strike, because it gives you damage. Defense, because it gives you defense. Epic Reflexes, so you can't fail reflex saves on a 1. You're a dex build, so that'll be very handy. Sign of the Ethereal Plane for more damage and more bonus to skills. And Harbinger of Chaos, because it gives you Double Strike and Imbue dice, and your character has an Imbue. So let's talk about enhancements. Now, I know I said we're playing as a Dark Hunter, but your character is using some of the Dark Hunter tree, but mostly the Tempest tree. The idea behind this character is to use scimitars. Usually, you would use another weapon, like a longsword or something like that. The problem with longsword is that you really need to get extra critical threat range, so longsword and Khopesh, so you would want advanced sneak attack here for the advanced critical or the increased critical threat range. However, it's very hard to fit into the build because one of the core pieces of this character is Lupine Instincts. It doesn't say it here in the builder, but in game, this gives you an extra +1 to your Disable Device and Search skill per level. So if you're a 20 ranger, that's +20. This is the only way you will be able to disable traps in epics, and this is the only way you'll be able to keep up on disabling traps during the leveling process. You need to have this enhancement. As a result, there's no way to take the Tempest tree and this enhancement and take advanced sneak attack, so as a result, your character will 100% be using scimitars on this build. So, how does it work? Well, first, during the leveling process, your damage is not going to be super great. You'll want to rely on others or use your sneak attack to help you out, maybe possibly using Bleed the Weak, getting the wolf here so you can get some of the extra imbue dice. You need to do something because unfortunately for you, scimitars are not classified as light weapons until you get Tempest here, so you'll want to make sure you don't start using scimitars until level 3, just start by using like other light weapons. And second, you don't get dex to damage until level 6. Which is way late. I wish they would move this down, make like Tempest, to make this like tier 1 and make this tier 3, or like core 3, but it is what it is. So you can start using scimitars starting at 3rd level, but before then, just use like short swords or whatever light weapons you have. Actually, you don't even have dex to damage, so yeah, just start using scimitars at 3, and then just use, actually, you know what? You can just use whatever weapons you want, the more I look at this, because it doesn't matter, because your strength is 10. Anyway, your damage is going to suck in the early game until you get to level 6. But fortunately, that's when you get whirlwind attacks. So just kind of group up a little bit for the first few levels. There are going to be zillions of groups in the harbor. You can obviously play this solo if you want, but yeah, I would recommend doing that. You're going to want to grab Underdark Defenses as soon as you can because it gives you, while wearing medium armor, you take half trap damage. This is what gives you trap immunity. Your character just gets hit by a trap. You're going to make the reflex save because you have high reflex saves, and you're basically going to take no damage from the trap. I would highly recommend you have a heavy shield in your inventory somewhere, and you just lock it. Lock it and put it on your action bar. So if you know you have to walk through a trap, for those that don't know, heavy shields and tower shields make you take another half damage from traps. It's not technically true. It doubles your physical magical resistance rating against traps. So you double your defenses against traps. So it's not quite half. But with this, Underdark Defenses and a shield, I was able to walk through 10 level 12 traps in a row on my level 8 Dark Hunter and not die. I had about 240 hit points, and each trap was hitting me for about 20. When I unspec'd both of these abilities and walked through the trap, I died to the first one. It is crazy how defensive it makes you, and that's the reason why you don't have to worry about not having evasion. You don't need evasion, you just need this enhancement. So, what is the path through this? Basically, in the early game, you want to make sure you're taking Tempest and Graceful Death as soon as you can, so that's really helpful. However, you also need to pick up some damage somewhere. So, level 1, grab Underdark Stalker, grab Bleed the Weak so you have some damage, and then pick up the Dark Wolf as well. Then move up, grab the Furor of Hunter, and then Primal Energy to pick up some extra damage. Again, while at the same time trying to grab Tempest and Graceful Death here. Just trying to pick up some extra stats. Once you kind of have, once you're up here on tier 3 on Tempest, so once you have Graceful Death, that's 10 points. I would grab Storm Dancer because it gives you electrical damage, and then you can undo Bleed the Weak. You don't really need Bleed the Weak, and you can instead spend the points in the sneak attack or on the awareness for Listen, Search, and Spot, which will help you out more with your actual finding of traps. So essentially, it's you're level 6-ish. you should have these 3 points and Storm Dancer, and you should have these 3 points, and then going like Sneak Attack Training, the Dark Wolf, the Fury of the Hunter, and then probably grabbing Primal Energy here. And then once you're at level 6, you want to beeline for Lupine Instincts. So spend the points in here, take the Awareness, grab Lupine Instincts. You want to grab that as soon as possible. Ideally, since you're already here and you're at 20-something points, Smoke Bomb makes you turn invisible. This just drops combat. Well, it doesn't drop combat like for Reaper mode, but it basically just gets you out of a bad situation. So really nice to have because you can kind of get out of somewhere that you don't want to be. And then Slayer in the Dark as well is nice because if you get a kill, you get 5 melee power, and it's really easy to get kills on this character, so it gives you 10 melee power if you get 2 kills, so it's not too bad because you're going to have a reasonable amount of damage. Additionally, you also get Opportune Moment, which gives you, it says it gives you sneak attack dice doubled here. That's not how that works. It actually just gives you sneak attack dice equal to your Dark Hunter level. So if I use Smoke Bomb before a combat, and then I leave invisibility, you have to like be invisible for like a second or two. When you leave invisibility, you're automatically going to get, let's say you're like level 9 when you get this, or 10. You get 10 extra dice of sneak attack against people. You already get a bunch for being a Dark Hunter. You get 3 extra here and then an extra 10 dice. So if you're with a party, you just cast the Smoke Bomb first. You wait a second. The combat starts. You run in and start chopping things. You're going to be hitting for over 100 damage around level 9 or 10. Added sneak attack damage on your hits. It's massive. Then, once you have that, grab like the first... At some point, also put 1 point in here. This is an amazing 1-pointer. Just really, really good. After you have that, then work up the rest of the Tempest tree. Pick up Growing Storm, all this other stuff, and you want to get Dance of Death as soon as you can. Huge amount of AoE damage. And then finish off Deepwood Stalker, and you're pretty much good to go there. As far as, like I said, the pathing goes, it's not too hard, but you do kind of have to make some different decisions about what's more important to you. But I cannot stress enough how insane Lupine Instinct is and how you want to grab this as quick as you can while also making sure you have Graceful Death, because you might not have any damage. That being said, if you have a party and they don't mind just, like, you not doing a whole lot of damage, then you're more than welcome to just go for Lupine Instincts ASAP and then come and fill out the rest of the stuff later. Again, it just really depends. Or alternatively, and this is also just another third option, because you also get all the ranged feats for free, feel free to play Dark Hunter and just play a bow character, because bows get dexterity to hit and damage, and so just run around with Dark Hunter plus bow, and then eventually, once you have some of the Tempest stuff, then start working on your melee stats, especially because you get Lupine Instincts at 6, based on how many points you need to spend in the tree, and you get Many Shot at 6, so if you do it this way, you'll have Graceful Death at around level 9 if you go for Lupine Instincts first, and by level 6 you have Many Shot, so you just kind of shoot stuff with the bow if you want. Again, a lot of flexibility with this character and how you want to do it. As far as the Epic Destinies go, this character is going to be using Legendary Dreadnought because it gives defense and damage, so super straightforward here. Lots of defense, lots of damage, very good. You also want to grab Shadow Dancer because Shadow Dancer gives you Cut to the Soul, which gives you some dodge and fortification bypass, which is handy, as well as Evasion. And you might be wondering, but I don't need Evasion, Strimtom. And I lied to you. I've said many times, Evasion bad. But Evasion actually can be kind of good if you don't fail your reflex saves on a 1. And you'll notice that at level, in the build here, at level 30, you don't fail reflex saves on a 1, and you're a dex build. What this means is that your character, in Heroics, is going to be using medium armor, and through Epics is going to be using medium armor. But once you get to the end game, and you have that don't fail reflex saves on a 1, that means you become, with enough reflex saves, entirely trap immune if you make your save with Evasion, which is that at that point you swap into light armor, and you will be using light armor for the end game, so your actual end game gear set will include light armor, so just keep that in mind. But again, before you get the end game light armor, just wear medium, be tanky, and then swap in the light armor when you get the chance. This character just super easily uses the Dreadstalker set from Isle of Dread. It's like super omega powerful. You can easily slap in the Essence of Winter, which is super powerful, and then you just kind of use whatever you want. Just fill in other pieces of gear. Oddly enough, the artifact that fits well with this character is Dr. LaRue's Curious Implant. I've never used this item before, but it has literally exclusively stats that you need. It fits in very, very well, and it's not hard to get because the Soul Splitter chain is very easy to farm, and no one ever wants this. You'll be the only person on DDO that actually wants this item, which is very convenient because then people will give it to you. The reason why the healing amp is important because it means your character will have tons of it, so you're very easy to heal in combat, and you're no slouch for defense either. 20 dodge, having access to physical and magical resistance rating pretty high, almost 2,000 hit points as a melee, and on top of that, your character has like lesser displacement, but you also, while action boosting, have the actual spell displacement. It's very, very powerful. As far as the hunter spells go, pretty straightforward. Just grab damage, healing, whatever you can fit in. The Dark Hunter also gains access to the first one's not here, but they gain access to the curative admixture spells. The builder is wrong. You can have all 4 curative admixture spells. They're super good for helping your team level up and go through. Another spell that's also missing from the builder is one called like Natural Instinct or something for level 3, and that's the spell you want to cast. It basically just gives you plus 10 on your listen and spot, which you'll need because your spot is going to suck. And yeah, that's about it. Should be pretty easy. Oh, I didn't go over the skills at all in any of these, but all the skills are really straightforward. It's basically just take the good skills. So if you're ever curious about what skills you should be taking, they'll be in the build guide below. Again, I just didn't go over it because skills are really straightforward. It's just you take the same ones every time you level up. I don't have any fancy skill setups or anything like that. It's kind of the same every single time. Alrighty, and now we move on to the worst of all of the builds I'm going to put forward for you today, which is the Sacred Fist. Now, Sacred Fist actually isn't bad. It's a monster leveler. The reason why I call it the worst is because it will perform the worst at level 32, and that's by nature of the fact that Sacred Fists just kind of require too many stats. And without very precise raid gear and tomes and past lives, it can be tough. But for leveling, oh my god, this character is an absolute beast. So if you're going for like the 1 to 20, don't even think about it. Sacred Fist is fantastic, super duper strong. If you're going for the 20 to 30, Sacred Fist is great. If you're going for the endgame Reaper mode, still useful, but I mean, it's not going to have the damage of the Dark Hunter, let's just say that. Yeah, I mean, you got tank, it's got a lot of health, it's got a lot of physical resistance rating. Look at that dodge. But yeah, we'll get into that. So because you need a lot of stats, you're going to start with a Dex 16 and a Charisma 18. As a result, we went with Drow. You're going to put 1 point in Dexterity at level 4, so you can take all of the 2-weapon fighting feats, and then max out the Charisma after that. Con starts a little low, but again, there's no way around that. You kind of have to start with a little lower con. Also, the strength here, some people might be a little bit confused about why your strength is a 12. As a Sacred Fist, you have to be centered, and if you become over-encumbered, you lose your being centered. So you need to make sure you do have a little bit of strength, because day 1 we have no guild buffs. Maybe when we get guild buffs into the ship, which will happen on like the 2nd or 3rd day. Actually, day 1 we'll usually have some ship buffs, but 2nd or 3rd day is when we have most of them, when we have all of them before the end of the first week. So if you start like a week late into hardcore, maybe drop a couple points out of strength and put them into wisdom instead. I don't know. Also, your wisdom's a 10. To cast spells, you will need a wisdom item, so keep that in mind. As far as the feats go, it's very, very standard melee character. 2-weapon fighting, precision, improved 2-weapon fighting, improved critical, greater 2-weapon fighting. Like, this is the standard. Every character is going to function like this. If it's a barbarian, it's like power attack and whatever, improved critical for whatever weapon you're using, and 2-handed fighting. Again, every melee character starts the same way. Then you take Swords to Plowshares, because it increases your critical threat range with hand wraps, which is very powerful. And then Quicken. I really like Quicken on the Sacred Fist, because it allows you to use several spells very fast in combat, and you have a lot of good combat spells. One of the specific, very powerful combat spells that you have is this one, called Sacred Flame Empowerment. You cast this, and it costs key, but if you quicken it, it also adds a 10 mana cost to it, so you'll be casting 10 mana every time. But what it does is it gives you +3 Sacred Fist dice and allows your critical hits to deal bane damage per Sacred Fist dice. Well, it's supposed to be just generally imbue dice. The reason why this is amazing is because the imbue dice is whatever. It's the bane damage on critical hit. That's an extra 11 or 10.5 damage per imbue dice on a critical. It's bane damage, so it hits everything, and it scales with your melee power. That damage is gigantic, and it's one of the reasons why Sacred Flame can actually do a fair amount of damage in the endgame. Sacred Flame Empowerment is very, very strong. Also, you get Flame Wave, which is really cool, and very powerful for the leveling process. So, epic feats. Again, it's the same as Dark Hunter, taking pretty much everything that adds damage, toughness, and then the Embodiment of Law here, because Embodiment of Law gives you extra imbue dice, PR, MRR, and it stacks with something we're going to take later, Epic Fortitude, so you don't fail Fortitude saves on a 1, which is convenient, and Scion of the Astral Plane. Your character is Charisma-based, and you get saves based on your Charisma as a Paladin, so you should have a reasonably high set of saving throws anyway. And then Scion of the Astral Plane here is because you're centered, so you have all these additional bonuses while being centered, so it's the best one, in my opinion, for this character. Now, as far as the tree goes, you have a little bit of flexibility, but you're going to notice this number down here, 50 in the Sacred Fist. Sacred Fist is overcosted. It's really expensive. You kind of, like, everything you want to take costs a lot in this tree, and you have to take all of these cores. They're not disconnected, unlike in other trees. And so, you kind of have to take the entire thing. So out of the Sacred Defender tree, you're picking up the Sacred Defense stance, as well as extra Constitution and some more defenses. Out of the Radiant Servant tree, you're going to be picking up Positive Energy Burst because it's super duper strong, and it counts as a turn, which is really important for something else in Sacred Fist. And Sacred Fist, you're kind of just taking everything. You grab the movement speed, all the cleaves for the AoE, the extra health, the critical violence begets violence, the Sacred Strike, which you need. You grab basically everything out of the tree. So, how do you go through this? Step 1, you're going to go into Sacred Fist. Okay, you're going to grab Sacred Flame or whatever, and then you're going to be getting Sacred Whirlwind. You can grab the extra smites if you want to smite. You can grab the Deft Strikes if you want extra hit chance. You can take Sacred Strike. Honestly, it doesn't matter which one you take. Just get the Exalted Whirlwind, because you're going to be using this all the time during the leveling process, and it's going to shore up your damage. Once you have this, for Hardcore Leagues specifically, I would recommend getting Sacred Defender, grab the double defense here, so durable defense, grab this, 1 point in delay on hands, and then Sacred Defense. That's going to give you a huge amount of defense during the leveling process. And then once you have this and this, then you're going to go Radiant Servant, and you're going to get pretty much everything except for the Charisma. So 11 points here, grab the Core, grab the Bliss, grab Divine Aid, pick up the Improved Turning and the Mighty Turning, Cure Moderate, and Positive Energy Burst. Cure Moderate's amazing for yourself and others for healing. You're going to have a lot of turns, because turns are based off of your Charisma. That's your main stat on this character. Important note, Sacred Fists get Charisma to hit and damage at level 6, so you don't need to get that from somewhere else. They just get that automatically. So you can get Improved Turning right here for extra turns, and Mighty Turning. As a Sacred Fist, if you actually take the spell Seek Eternal Rest, you will instantly kill undead while turning, which is very convenient because you can use your turns for that. Additionally, you can just use Positive Energy Burst. And the reason why the turns matter is later on in Sacred Fist, you get an ability called Rising Hope. When you use Turn Undead, you and nearby allies gain an extra key on hit. Key generation is one of the hardest parts for Sacred Fist, but you can use Positive Energy Burst to heal yourself, and then once you've healed, you now gain an extra key per hit, so you can just spam out all your key abilities as much as you want, making it very powerful. So as I said, you're going to go grab Exalted Whirlwind, then, so that's 7 points. Pick up Strike Evil whenever you can. Just like once you get to level 3, just put a point in here because it's a huge amount of damage. It's really nice. Then you're going to go Holy Bastion, Durable Defense, 1 point to delay on hands, and Sacred Defense. That's 6 points. So that's a total of 13 spent. And then your next 11 goes into Radiant Servant, and you're taking Positive Energy Burst. Very, very, very good. Would recommend. After you have all of those things, then just fill out the Sacred Fist tree. Just shove the rest of your points in here. Take all cores, grab all the stuff on the left and right. Take whatever you think is important. Exalted Smite is a gigantic amount of damage, so you want to have that. Light of Hope and Fist of Glory is a gigantic amount of damage. Something that Light of Glory does not tell you here is it also adds light damage onto your Flame Wave spell. So when you take this and then you cast Key Wave, or whatever it's called, the 3rd level spell, this will do a disgusting amount of damage, so it's also nice to have the Fist of Glory here as well, and then grabbing all the extra points. So that's pretty much how you go through it, and then once you're done, kind of come back and fill out the rest of the tree. The reason why we grab Charisma is because you just need more of it. It really helps out your stats, so that is an option. Some of you might be wondering why I haven't multi-classed here. The main reason why there's no multi-class is, as opposed to, taking like a level of Cleric for the Trance, which is going to be a huge question, is basically the capstone here gives you 25% Fire Absorb, which is really nice for epics, and very helpful, as well as for Charisma. And if you give up on Ultimate Flame here and you instead decide to multiclass, you're going to lose a lot of Charisma, so the Trance won't even have that much effectiveness. It is good. I'm not denying that it isn't good, but on Hardcore League, you're really strapped for stats. Let me just say that. So it's a little harder. And then we look at Epic Destinies. Epic Destinies, you're going to be using the Divine Crusader tree with the Consecrate, as well as Crusade and Cower Before Me. So you can buff up your allies as well as making enemies cower, and you've got a lot of healing. Remember that Sacred Fists get a lot of healing spell power, and so do Radiant Servants, so your Consecrate will put out they're just constant healing. Additionally, you've got healing from using Divine Smite, which is super powerful, so you have a lot of healing on your character as just almost like a passive benefit. Then moving up to the top of the tree, grabbing Law of the Divine. This does not just give you Embodiment of Law. If you have Embodiment of Law, it gives you extra 12 d6s of damage per strike, which is absolutely massive, on top of Bring Down Wrath. Now you'll notice I don't use the Crusader Mantle here. That's because this just allows your favorite weapons to stack Vulnerability and Armor Piercing, which is very nice. So you can just take that. Instead, you're using the Primal Avatar Mantle, because not only does it add a good amount of damage, but also it gives you extra Imbue dice, which then in turn increases the damage of your Sacred Flame Imbue, so it's pretty sweet. and it gives you Rejuvenation Cocoon as well, which is just nice. And then Legendary Dreadnought, because it's just good defensively and offensively. Extra action boosts for your double strike action boosts, extra double strike here, and then a bunch of defense, which is powerful. I didn't super go over the spells. Just make sure you take the Righteous Command, Angel Skin, and Sacred Flame Empowerment. These are all very, very good. In terms of order, I usually like to grab Angel Skin first because it gives you more defense, then Righteous Command, and then lastly Sacred Flame Empowerment, just because maintaining key in the early levels is kind of tough. Then at level 3, Magic Circle Against Evil is super powerful, but you can like wand or scroll this if you want, if you don't actually want to cast it, and then use Incinerating Wave first. And then lastly, at level 4, Holy Sword is the best spell, Zeal is the second best spell, Death Ward is the third best spell, and then Key Explosion is amazing, but like these other ones are better, so you want to take them first instead. And then as far as the item build goes, this one's fairly straightforward. It is the Legendary Stalker outfit from Isle of Dread. Very, very good if you haven't tried it. It's got a little bit of winter pieces just to get some extra defense built into here. And then on top of that, filling out with some charisma stats. So you got like, you know, the subtle pendant of subtle pain. You got the battle worn metal here for some extra accuracy. A dinosaur bone crafted ring, which is pretty nice. And then the dinosaur bone hand wraps here, which is also, again, pretty nice. So that's generally the idea that we're going to go with here as far as the item set goes. And it should be fairly straightforward. Again, making you like reasonably tanky for the end game. You're not going to be the strongest character, but you're a fantastic support because of all the defense you bring to the party, as well as the extra just passive healing that you get to throw around. So generally useful, and I'm very excited to test out some Sacred Fist here on Hardcore League. All right, and last but not least, we have the Tiefling Stormsinger. Stormsinger is insane on Hardcore because Spellsinger is super good, and Stormsinger is better Spellsinger. So you should be excited about this one. Max out your Charisma, get some Constitution, no problem. As far as the feats go, pretty much the same as every other spellcaster, you're just not a human. Maximize, Quicken, Empower, First Personality, Shield feats. Again, we talked about this before, shield feats give you defense and health. Important note, you don't need to use a shield during the heroic leveling process, because it gives you Arcane Spell Failure, so I wouldn't actually recommend it. You just take it for the extra hit points, it's better than Toughness, and that's what you would take instead. Inspire Excellence, because it's the best feats in DDO. Very, very good. Make sure you're inspiring your allies. Burst of Glacial Wrath for some crowd control on top of the crowd control you already provide. It's just a really good spell. Deific Warding for some defense. Emboldened Spell for some spell DCs. Sign of Celestia because you need hit points and then more hit points. Very, very, very strong. Very straightforward build here. However, where it gets less straightforward is the enhancements. Because you're going to look at this and you'll be like, cool, Stormsinger, that makes sense. I'm going to be putting all my points in Stormsinger and I got some points in Spellsinger. Okay, sounds good. That's fine. But it's not fine because the idea here is not to use this, but instead to use this. This is a slightly different enhancement tree that I just flipped to, and it is what I would recommend you use. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to explain it out, but in the actual build guide, I have a description as to how you're going to go through it when you do it. Now, the reason why is that in Epic, or in Heroics, you're going to run out of mana a lot, because you literally just don't have enough mana. That's just how it works. Your spell's going to cost a lot, bards have a very small spell point pool, you're going to run out of mana. So you need this ability Spell Song Vigor. What this does is it basically gives you 1 spell point back a second. It gives you 2 every 2 seconds, so like 1 spell point back a second, which means every minute you get 60 spell points back, which means in a quest, if the average quest time is say 8 minutes, you can be what? 8 times 6, 420 spell points back. It's very, no, 560 spell points? 480 spell points. Nothing crazy. So it's not a huge amount. But when you only have like 1,000, that's a lot of spell points. At endgame, you're going to have like 3,000. So 480 is not really going to be pretty much anything, and you don't need this when you get towards the endgame. But for leveling, it's invaluable. So you're going to be using the Spellsinger tree here instead, pictured here, during the leveling process. And then when you feel like you are comfortable on your spell point usage, that's when you're going to swap to the other tree. I have a written guide as to how to go through it, so I would recommend you just check it. It's literally a picture that just highlights what you should take in what order. But basically, you want to grab both of these spell-like abilities as soon as you can, because they're both very, very good. Then once you have these spell-like abilities, you're going to want to rush up Spellsinger and pick up Shout. This is crazy, super good. Then you want to keep going up Spellsinger and grabbing Sustaining Song, because this is one of the best things, as well as Frolic and Song of Arcane Might. And then once you have all of this, then you're going to be putting points into Stormsinger, grabbing Snowball Swarm, and Efficient Maximize along the way. once you have Snowball Swarm and Efficient Maximize, you're going to be able to take tier 5 of Spellsinger, at which point then you're going to be able to grab the rest of Stormsinger and the rest of Warchanter. Warchanter is just here for extra hit points and defense, which is valuable. And you want hit points and you want defense, so you are going to be taking that. But as I said, once you're done, then you're going to be swapping into the Stormsinger setup, which takes a lot of points out of Spellsinger because Stormsinger gives gigantic amounts of damage. You're going to be picking up the Enhanced Bolt and the Master of Storms, gigantic damage. You're going to be picking up Stormcaller for gigantic damage, more crit for gigantic damage. So you just want the damage. But again, that's when you get more into the endgame. This is a damage caster. You still retain the buffs, Frolic and Sustaining Song, because these are insane. But again, it's the damage. You should make sure you're buffing everybody when you play a Stormsinger. If you don't know much about Stormsinger, I do have other Stormsinger videos on my YouTube channel, but you want to make sure you are buffing all your allies because the buffs you get out of this tree are very, very strong. Moving on to the epics. This character is going to be playing as a Fatesinger because Fatesinger will help out both you and your allies in a high capacity. You'll be taking the Fatesinger Mantle, Mantle of Sound and Fury, which might sound weird because it is not the best mantle out there. There's other better mantles for damage. However, this mantle gives you temporary hit points, which is awesome. So you're going to be constantly getting temporary hit points, which you want so you don't die in Hardcore League. And it gives you the Sonata to serve, where when you're using Mantle of Sound and Fury, you're now immune to Arcane Spell Failure. This is great because it means you can use whatever shield you want. So you can slap a Tower Shield on your arm, and your character is going to have a huge amount of additional defense, which is what I recommend you do. Which is why you take all the shield feats, because with the shield feats and the Tower Shield, very strong. You also get access to Cut the Strings, one of the best spells in the whole game. Turn the Tide for huge damage. Unyielding Zendel for renewal, because it's very, very good. And then Draconic Incarnation for Scales of the Dragon, because you can take half damage from Electric all the time and a huge amount of defense through this. Also, you take Dragon Breath. We don't get the upgrade for Dragon Breath, but since you're playing on Reaper 4, this will kill most things instantly anyway, if you hit them with it once you get all the way up to the cap and you get fully geared, so it's not too bad. As far as the spells go, which I always forget, the Stormsinger spells, pretty straightforward. You don't really need to take any of the first level spells. You could take Sonic Blast if you want instead of Remove Fear. I mean, it's fine. I never really went with like Shocking Grasp or whatever. I don't really care too much about that. You're gonna mostly be just like tagging along with other people for the first couple levels, like every good spellcaster would do. However, once you get to level 2, Soundburst is insane. It's a big damage spell, and it stuns everything, so it's very nice to have, as well as some more defensive abilities. At level 3, Lightning Bolt really comes in clutch and helps out a lot by increasing your damage. Grabbing Shout, grabbing Chain Lightning at 5, as well as Ball Lightning. These are both great spells. Ball Lightning at level 10. I would actually probably argue Ball Lightning over Shout, just because of how much damage it does. Chain Lightning is your bread and butter. It's like one of the highest damage spells you get. Then, of course, you grab Greater Shout and Thunderstroke at level 6, with Iceberg coming once you actually get the tier 5 of the Stormsinger tree. Grabbing every cure along the way for the most part. You should probably grab Cure Moderate during the leveling process and maybe swap it out later. Same thing with Cure Light Wounds. Like, you don't really need Master's Touch at level 1, so unless you're planning on using like different types of weapons, you can take Cure Light. You could take Cure Moderate and then swap those out later. It's not a big deal, but you have space for the rest of the cure spells, so you might as well take them. And that's how it would go through there. And then itemization, I went with the Isle of Dread set for the Walking Ancestors to get the extra spell DCs, which is pretty good. And then actually went for Dread Isle's Curse, because it gives you a bunch of profane spell DCs, which is nice, as well as 2-piece Winter. For the Winter, you're going to be using the Shield and Boots from the Feywild, Deep Snow, as well as the Bulwark of Snow, which gives you a bunch of extra physical resistance rating, which is why the character is so much just direct bulk. On top of that, Hallowed Castigators gives Insightful Sheltering and Healing Lore, just super duper good. And then again, just filling out with different Isle of Dread pieces. I didn't craft all of the Isle of Dread pieces. In fact, I only crafted one, I think, the Blue Raptor Feather for healing amplification, as well as the Dinosaur Bone Ring. Every weapon, by the way, here, I forgot to mention this, is going to recommend you use a Dinosaur Bone weapon. For any caster, it doesn't matter what weapon you pick. Just pick a weapon. So if the second you get a Dinosaur Bone weapon, just be like, okay, this is the one, because again, you're not a melee, you don't care about what weapon you pick up. So if it's like, oh, I got the Rapier, great, I'm not hitting anybody with it, so it doesn't matter, you're just using it for the slots. If you are a Dark Hunter, you want Scimitars. If you are a Sacred Fist, you want Hand Wraps. But for the 4 other casters on this list, you just want a Dinosaur Bone weapon, and then you're going to put in the slots as recommended here. For farming Isle of Dread items, also important note, you can farm out all of the augments on normal. So it's not hard to get. It's actually insanely easy to craft a Dinosaur Bone weapon. The only exception is the final slot, the Ice Horn. or whatever it is on here. So the horn slot does require killing one of the raid bosses, or like they call them raid bosses, like the purple names, out on the landscape. You will not want to do that alone, but groups pop up at in-game that farm those bosses just like into ransack. So it's very easy to get a group for that. So just kind of get a group for that. If you don't happen to have one of these, and you want an item to use, the rest of the spell power is taken care of in other places, and for all of these builds, because they're all using dinosaur bone weapons. Which means, if you don't know what to use, all the casters get a Morning Lord's Scepter. It's free, and it comes from Ravenloft. You just talk to a guy and he gives it to you. If you're a Dark Hunter, get a Morning Lord's Scimitar. It's free, and the guy gives it to you. If you're a, what do you call it, a Sacred Fist, talk to the guy that gives you Morning Lord's Hand Wraps. It's free. There's a guy on the road in Barovia. He gives you a free weapon. You don't have to do anything. Just go do Into the Mist on casual, and then go get your free weapon, and you'll feel leaps and bounds better. But Dinosaur Bone is the upgrade, and this is what I'm going to be recommending in every video. So, that's it. That's what we got. Hardcore Build Guide, Season 8. Again, apologies for my voice sounding raspy. I have a cold. Bad timing, I guess, and bad time to need to record like an hour-long video. So, if you have any questions about this, put them in the comments below, or dump them into the actual thread for all the build guides, and I will do my best to get back to you and help you out with that one. And also, if you need more help on Hardcore League, other pieces of information you might want to know, I have my Discord, which you can join below. People talk about hardcore there all the time, and stress test builds and talk about different things. So if that's something that you are curious about seeing or reading, or maybe you want build advice or quest advice or whatever it is, it's there. We also have lots of great links and resources in the Discord. There's like a hardcore quest guide of which quest to do and to avoid, gearing guides, and the like. A lot of good stuff in there. Also, the hardcore guild information will be in the Discord. I'll also post it here on YouTube, so it'll be in the tab. So if you're like, oh, there's going to be a guild, you said you're going to run a guild, that information will be posted the day of. We just need to make sure we get the guild first, because if I don't get the guild name, it would be really silly of me to tell you what the guild name is. Then on day one, you go join the guild, and because I posted here in the video, some enterprising young prankster decided to take that guild name and then siphon people away for a reason I don't understand, because I guess they think it's funny when it's not. So anyway, all that information is there should you need it, and I'll have that posted for you as soon as I can. Also, if you happen to be watching this and you're like, man, I don't know what the new mechanics are going to be. I don't know either, for the record. I don't know what's going to happen, because like with Hardcore 6, where there was the hounds, people were getting killed left and right and center. So if you want to find out what is going on before you log in, I will be streaming the day it releases, starting at 12. Well, I'm going to be starting streaming before the servers come up, but the server's supposed to be up at 12, and then at 12:30 is when the actual thing goes live, or like when we'll be starting. So I'll be starting at 12:30 with the actual run-through. Me and my friends are doing a 1 to 20 on the first day, so we'll be experiencing all the quests, all the content, and hopefully it should have a good kind of examination as to exactly what is going on. But with that being said, that's all I got for you today. So thank you so much for watching. Hope you had a fantastic time. Again, if you have questions about this, check out the Twitch stream if you need an instant answer, or leave a comment below or in the forum post. And that's it. So don't die. Stay alive and get those cool rewards, which we don't know what they are yet.